Hi, today we're going to talk about how film works. So here we have a bunch of different kinds of film. This is all 35 millimeter film, but it's got different things, different color, black and white. So you could get slide film that was actually positive film, so it wasn't negative. All sorts of different kinds of things. And the real reason why we're going to talk about it was because of this man. His name is George Eastman, and he revolutionized photography in the late 1800s. What they were doing was they were taking photographs with collodion wet plate process, and it was very, very difficult. And the only people that did it were professionals or very rich people who did it for a hobby. You weren't There weren't people running around taking pictures all the time, every moment, every day like you do now. It was very rare to have a photograph taken back then. So George Eastman was a banker and he got interested in photography and he started doing all that craziness. He had to wet down the plates and immediately develop them, and he thought there must be a better way. So he developed the dry film. He developed a dry film and figured out a way to mass produce it so that people of any background could get a hold of this film, and it would be hopefully affordable so that anybody could take pictures. And that's essentially what happened. Was he mass produced this roll of film so that everyone could take pictures. And here's what the film looks like. And this is for all film, but he made it into a roll film so that it was more feasible and it worked a lot easier than just a sheet of film. So on the very top of your film, there is light sensitive silver halide grains, and they're going to go on this top part. And also that goes into it is a gelatin binder, so it kind of sticks them all together. Both of these things, the gelatin and the silver halides, they go together and they're called the emulsion. So when people talk about the emulsion of film, it is the light sensitive part, even though there is some gelatin in there as well. And then on the bottom of the film is the plastic film base. And so that is made of plastic and it is stuck to the silver halides with the gelatin binder. So they both kind of stick together. And then above and below it, there's another little layer to kind of help protect it from scratching. But up here is where the light is going to react with the silver halides. And here are the silver halides right here. Once that light hits those silver halides, all of them are going to kind of clump together where that light hits, and where it's darker and there's not as much light, they'll kind of spread apart. When that happens, you can't see any of that. You have to wait till the film is developed and put through the chemical process. And then once it's put through the chemical process, then you can see the image. So the film goes into the back of the camera, the canister goes back in here, and then you pull the film over to this side and wind it around this take-up reel. Once you have to advance the film, either you have to do it if you have a manual camera, or some cameras are automatic and it will automatically advance the film for you. So the film will go around that and it'll advance to the next frame, and then you wind it again and it'll advance to the next frame. It'll go until there's no more film left in here, and then it will all of a sudden stop and it won't let you take any more pictures. And as I said yesterday, they came in either 12, 24, 36 exposures. So you could take that many pictures. You could take 12 pictures or 24 or 36, and that would be it. You couldn't take pictures all day long, so you really had to be choosy about what you're taking pictures of and try your very best to make a good photograph, because it was going to cost you money. One photographer I met when I first moved to Sumter, he had been doing photography for 50 years, and he said it cost about $1 every time you took a picture. So you really want to make sure you got the kind of picture you wanted before you snapped the camera. Then once you are done with the film, you are going to develop it. And when it comes out of the developing chemicals, you end up with these negatives. So all of the coating and the extra silver halides are rinsed off during the developing process, and it becomes a clear plastic sheet so that you can see that where everything the light touched will be black and where it's darker it'll be white. Now, every film has a certain speed, and it's usually referred to as either ASA or ISO. On digital cameras now, you can always find the ISO button. ASA stands for American Standards Association, and ISO stands for International Organization, Standards Organization. So we're just going to go with ISO since that's what's found on most digital cameras, but you could call it either way. So what that is, it refers to the numbers that are on the film, and that's going to be the film's sensitivity to light. The smaller the number, like 100 is smaller than 400. 100 is going to be less sensitive to light. 3200 is going to be very sensitive to light, which means that if you have a 3200 speed film, you can go take pictures of the night sky or candles or a football game at night on Friday nights. If you have 100 speed film, that means you are perfectly capable of taking pictures in bright sunlight. Or if you want to slow down your shutter to get some crazy waterfall pictures, you can use that one. So here's the different ISO numbers. We have 100, 200, 400, 800, 1600, and 3200. And there might be some that are even more faster now, and there might be some that are even slower than this. I think 64 is about the slowest, but there's probably some other specialty films that you can get that are a little bit slower than that. With a very slow one, 164, that means you can go out into the forest and slow your shutter speed way down so that lots of light comes in there and you can keep it open for a long period of time to get some pretty waterfall pictures like this, where it looks like the water is just continuously flowing evenly. One of my photographer friends calls this bubblegum. I think it's bubblegum waterfalls. And this one is the same thing. It's a nice slow shutter speed because the film is so slow or isn't very sensitive to the light. They can keep that camera open for a really long time to get the movement of the water. If you're going to use a fast shutter or a fast film speed, a larger film speed number, then it would end up being more like this, which is not bad, but I like the bubblegum ones. They're pretty cool. And then with a 3200 or even an 800 or 1600 speed, you can get photographs in darker areas. And 3200 easily, you can take pictures of candlelight just like this. And it's even sharp. It's not blurry because it's open for a long time. The reason why it's blurry back here is because of the depth of field, but you got these sharp ones right here, so you know that it's not open for a very long time. There's no movement of those flames. Also, you want to use a fast film speed if you want to go take pictures of action at night, like football games. So if you're out taking pictures of your football games at night, you want to use those fast ISO speeds. And this goes for digital photography too. So if you have a 35 millimeter single lens reflex digital camera, there's an ISO speed on there. And if you're taking pictures at night or in the dark, you want to use those fast ISO numbers, the high ones, 3200, 1600. It's going to give you a little bit of grain, a little bit of dots going on here, some noise, if you will. But the technology is getting better all the time, and sometimes it's not even apparent. So if you look at these numbers, 100, 200, 400, 800, 1600, and 3200, do you notice a pattern? Have you noticed that they double? So it goes from 100 to 200 and 200 to 400. You're doubling it or halving it. In photography, everything we do with numbers, including the film, is going to be doubled. And when you go from one number to the next doubled number, that is called one stop. So from here to here, that's one stop difference. And from here to there, that's one stop difference. You need to know this so that you know how to adjust your cameras. When you are working with a manual camera, you're going to want to be able to expose your film correctly. And it's very important to expose film correctly. The reason why we need to make sure that the camera knows exactly which film speed is in the camera is because you want the correct exposure going in there. With the digital cameras, it doesn't really matter because whatever ISO you set it on, that's what it's going to decide. It has that film in there. It first per se, we'll just call it film, even though there's no film in there. But it will decide that there's 100 speed film in there if you put 100. And if you put down 1600, it'll decide that it has 1600 film in there. So there's no way that with a digital camera you'll be able to under overexpose by having the ISO on the wrong setting. However, if you are using film ever in your life, you do want to make sure that it's on the right setting, because if it's on the wrong setting, you could over under expose your film. Whatever you set your ISO to, your light meter is going to determine how much film is appropriate to expose your film or your camera correctly. And that is all I have for you on this particular topic today. And we are going to move on to camera body parts tomorrow. And then we will top off Friday with lenses.